What up, Winbush here, and I'm excited to announce that I just made a game with Method Man. Now, before I move any further into explaining how I built out this experience, I wanted to give a big shout out to Razer and Nvidia Studio for sponsoring this video. Because when it came down to creating, playtesting, and showcasing this experience, the Razer Blade 18 really came through in a clutch. So this project initially came about, funny enough, through Twitter Spaces a couple of years ago. Ray Acosta, the CMO of Woo Music, actually heard about my background working in movies for Marvel and DC. He saw that I worked on Iron Man, Fantastic Four, I worked on Lego Batman 2, and he was creating a comic book experience with Method Man called the Metaverse. So he reached out, asked if I'd be interested in creating a superhero persona for Method Man, and of course I said absolutely. So the very first thing that I did was go over to Character Creator 4 using a headshot plugin. I got a headshot of Method Man, starting just experimenting, seeing what he would look like as a superhero persona, and then I just sent over some concepts of what I thought he could look like as a superhero. They signed off on it, and then we brought in Doodle Dave, a 2D artist. He did some more sketches of it, in which then back in 3D recreated the superhero outfit to match the 2D persona, and that's what we have today for the Metaverse comic book. And since this would be my very first video game experience that I created from the ground up, I wanted to get back to the fundamentals, which is keep it basic and keep it fun. So I did a lot of researching of just games that I liked in general, like the original Super Mario Brothers. If you look at this plain layout here, you can see how simple it is for this first level, and this first level is iconic. Like, I think everybody in the world pretty much knows what this level is, and it's super simple, but at the same time, it's really fun. And even going back to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade, if you look at this layout right here, I mean, this is the first level, and this will take you a couple of minutes to get through. It's very basic, but once you start adding gameplay mechanics in there, it makes it extremely fun for the end user to play. So I'm not much of a sketch artist, but I just started doodling out what I thought like a 2D platformer could look like for this experience here. And then I wanted to take it one step further and not only have it be like a side-scrolling platformer, but I also wanted to have the immersive of having it be in 3D as well, something similar to like Spider-Man or God of War. And so I just wanted to play around with these elements and really fine-tune it and just really go in and make something that I would see that's different, that I haven't seen anybody out there on the platform creating. And since I'm using the Razer Blade 18, it has the Nvidia GeForce RTX 4080 inside of it, which means I have access to the Nvidia Studio drivers, which will make my applications both stable and reliable. Now, just looking at the list of applications here that receive RTX GPU accelerated benefits like After Effects, Illustrator, Photoshop, in which all I use inside my project. But if you even come over here to 3D, you can see we have Cinema 4D in here, in which of course I used as well, that gets perks like live viewport rendering thanks to the RTX GPUs. Again, I'm using the RTX 4080. Then also for the editing, DaVinci Resolve is something that I use to cut the promos and trailers, which also get a boost with RTS AI effects and tools. And this is something I actually didn't realize at first as well, but OBS Studio, which I use to do all my screen recording, is actually GPU accelerated using the Nvidia Studio drivers, which I thought was pretty cool because whenever I'm recording gameplay, I didn't get any frame rate drops at all. I was able to record everything at a clean, crisp 60 frames per second. Now you might be asking, those applications that I just listed off there, how did I use those in combination with UEFN to create this game? Because most people just jump right into UEFN. They use a lot of the prefab assets and they don't do anything custom, in which I wanted this to be mostly with custom items. And so the very first thing that I did was actually look up a comic book shop there on Google, looked at a couple of floor plans, and then inside of Adobe Illustrator, I just made my own floor plan in there that I could then bring into Cinema 4D, where I can extrude it and then make that a FBX and then bring that into UEFN. And that would be the comic book shop that you saw there at the very end. So it was a very simple process going from Adobe Illustrator to Cinema 4D and then into UEFN. But then also I did use Adobe After Effects in here as well, but not the way that you might think. Now, I often like going into Adobe After Effects to create still frames. I know it's an animation program, but oftentimes I like the way that the layer stack system is in there and how it's non-destructible. And so for that comic book overlay, I actually built that out inside of Adobe Illustrator, where I separated them, and then I brought those pieces into Adobe After Effects where I laid everything out. Now, I like the flexibility of just being able to go through, turn on, turn off different layers inside of After Effects. And once I was happy with how I had everything laid out, I exported it out as a PNG. And then I just brought that into UEFN, where I was able to make it an overlay for the UI. Now, besides UEFN, Cinema 4D would probably be the other most used application within this entire process. Now, I recently did a 45-minute talk at NAB at the Maxon booth, going over how I use Cinema 4D inside of UEFN, in which I'll leave a link down below in the description if you want to watch that full presentation. But the cool thing about Cinema 4D is they have an asset browser. It's kind of like Quixel Megascans, where they have a whole plethora of different assets that are free to use at your disposal. So I used a lot of the buildings in there. I used some of the textures in there. I converted those over to the way that I wanted them to be, and then I brought those into UEFN. So all those buildings that you actually see there in the background, those were created inside of Cinema 4D using our asset browser. I then went through, re-UV'd them, and brought those into UEFN, and where I could lay everything out the way that I wanted. And then the thing that I'm really proud about at the end there, when you're doing the boss battle with Method Man, he's trapped inside the force field, you can see there's a whole bunch of these villain comic books that are flying around him. And I built that out inside of Cinema 4D using the MoGraph cloner. Now, the reason I'm proud of this is because you can't technically take the MoGraph animation and bring it into UEFN. So I had to do some thinking. I exported it out as an Alembic file, in which when I tried to bring that in, that messed up as well. And so I went through, made it an FBX file, brought those pieces in individually, and just linked them all up within the sequencer. And I know a lot of people ask me about the wall break inside of the game here. Now, that was done also inside of Cinema 4D, in which I was able to get accelerated playback for that as well. So just setting up the Veroni fracture in there, making it crash through. And the same process here, I could do a more lengthy tutorial if people really want to know how to bring this down. But the same thing, I had to export out as an Alembic file, bring that back into Cinema, just relink everything in there, export those out of FBXs, and then I took all 500 plus items inside of UEFN and individually added the animations to those to get the brick fall that you saw. Now, it was a little bit laborious, but I really wanted this effect in my game, and sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. Now, when working on a gaming experience, the one thing that I did discover is one of the most important things you need to do is playtest, playtest, playtest. And having the Razer Blade 18 allowed me to actually go out in the field and playtest with other people, because I could play the game all I want, but getting other people's eyes and hands on it really came through and helping me know what was fun and what wasn't working. So whenever I go to a conference and be doing a presentation, I use that as an opportunity to showcase this project as I was working on it. And one of the big things that a lot of people said when they were playing it is, dang, that screen looks crazy. And that's because one of the highlights of this machine is definitely the screen, which has a high refresh rate of 240 hertz. And another highlight is the case is all aluminum. It has this iodide finish, and it has a vapor cooling system in there. So whenever I was doing the presentations up on stage, I'm running a multitude of different applications. I would have Cinema 4D open, UEFN, After Effects, and not once did the fan really boot up and get loud, which I would attest that to the vapor cooling chambers, because I've used other systems in the past, and whenever you start running different applications, you definitely hear the fan, but this actually stayed quiet the entire time. And I haven't ran into any issues where I needed to upgrade anything, but I do have the flexibility to upgrade the RAM and the storage, as it's easy to just go through and swap out some of the components. Not only does this run an RTX 4080 GPU in this machine, but it also runs an Intel i9 processor. And having a beefy laptop really came in handy when I needed to be mobile, because in my office, as you can see, it has mood lighting in here. I don't have any type of real good lighting up above. All the lights are just coming from my studio lighting here. And so whenever I was doing stuff like wanting to put myself inside the video game as an NPC character, I actually took my laptop out into my living room where I had a little bit more natural lighting in there, just opened up all the windows and everything. And in there, I was able to get an actual facial scan using a hardware scanner hooked up to the Razer Blade 18. And was able to create a 3D likeness of myself that I could add inside of the game. And same exact thing with the motion capture, in which I'll give you a sneak peek right here, because my next project I'm actually working on with Mixmaster Mike of the Beastie Boys, we're going to be working on a UEFN concert series inside of Fortnite, in which I was able to take this over to his studio, put his motion capture suit on him, and with no delay at all, I was doing screen recording, I was capturing Mike, which is the world's fastest DJ, and I was able to get his motion capture performance all in tune using this laptop here, where I got really good results recording him at really high frame rates. But of course, at the end of the day, this channel is all about tutorials. So if there's anything inside the gaming process that you want to see personally have a tutorial breakdown for, because a lot of these different ways that I went to create this game could be a simple tutorial in itself, like how I was able to break down the wall there, or how I was able to build out the level inside of UEFN using Cinema 4D. Like, these will all be individual tutorials. So if there's anything that you want to know, let me know down below and I'll be happy to make that tutorial for you. So once again, I want to give a big thank you to Razer and Nvidia Studio for not only sponsoring this video, but also for supporting the project overall. Like, whenever we talked about it initially, they sent the Razer Wolverine V2 Chroma controller, which is the Xbox controller that I used for all the playtests, and especially when I was out there on the road, and a couple other accessories as well. So thank you for supporting the project. It's much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. And until next time, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll catch you in the next video. Make sure you go play Battle for New York today.